On numbers 19 through 24, you're told to refer to circle O, which tells you O is the center of that circle. So in naming these parts of the circle, remember we've talked about a bunch of different rules. You got to know what the word means. You have to know the vocabulary word, and then you have to know how you can write the segment or line that represents that word. So on number 19, make sure you paid attention that you were asked to identify two radii. So remember, radii are, or a radius is a segment that has one endpoint as the center and one endpoint on the circle. So we have two radii, which is the plural of radius, in this circle that are given. We have segment OB and segment OT. So they both have to start at the center and end on the circle. So those are the two radii that we have. Now the order of the letters doesn't matter. If you call that segment BO and segment TO, that's exactly the same thing. Number 20, we're asked for a diameter. A diameter also has to be a segment, so you're going to have to use the segment symbol again. Its endpoints both have to be on the circle. So we only have one diameter here because a diameter has to go through the center of the circle as well. So the only diameter we have starts at point B and ends at point T and goes through the center, which is point O. So you name that segment with its end points, which are the points B and T. So you can name that either segment BT or segment TB. A secant is a segment, array, or a line that contains 2 points on the circle. So we have a couple of options here. Since it didn't tell us we couldn't repeat segments, we can also call the diameter a secant because a diameter contains 2 points on the circle. So segment BT is an option for the secant as well. We have another secant that's drawn here too, though. Since A and B are points on the circle, this segment that contains points A and B would be a secant as well. So segment AB is another secant in this drawing. Remember, the order doesn't matter, so segment TB and segment BA would be fine as well. You don't have to name both of these. It just asks for a secant. It's just both of those would be options. On number 22, you're asked for a tangent. Remember, a tangent contains only 1 point on the circle and therefore is always outside the circle. A tangent can be a segment, array, or a line as well. When we look for a tangent here, we only see one segment that contains 1 point on the circle, and that's this segment right here. By the way, on AB and on this segment as well, you don't have arrows at the end, so you can't name these as rays or lines. These have to be segments. If you had arrows at the end, you could also name them using a ray or a line. So here we have to name this as a segment with naming the 2 points that are given on that segment. So you would name that as segment TS or segment ST since the order doesn't matter. You can't name these with just one letter because you're not given a name. Remember, a name would be a scripted letter. So if we had, for instance, arrows at the end of this tangent and I had a little scripted letter M, I could call that line M. You can't name a line with just 1 point, but that's not a point. That's the name of the line. For chords, chords have to be segments and they have to contain 2 points on the circle. The endpoints of the chord have to be on the circle. So we named this segment AB as a secant, but this segment that starts at point A and ends at point B is also a chord because its endpoints A and B are on the circle. So segment AB is a chord. Now, if there were points out here given, if I had a point here and we'll call it M and we'll name a point out here N, I couldn't say segment MN is a chord because points M and N are not on the circle. I could say it's a secant, but I couldn't say it's a chord. Only the part that starts at A and ends at B is a chord. Now another option for the chord would be the diameter, because a diameter also is a segment with endpoints on the circle. So segment BT would be another option for your chord. And you have to name 2, so we have to name both of those. Number 24 says a point of tangency. It's not asking for a tangent segment line array, it's just wanting the point of tangency. Remember, that's the 1 point that that line contains on the circle. So to name a point, you use the word point and then the letter of the point. So point T is the point of tangency.